Okay, so to start off this interview, could you please just really quickly give us a short introduction to yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm Julia Brouwers. I'm 24 years old. I'm coming from a small village next to Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I used to be a professional athlete in the past, used to be a professional swimmer on quite a high level when I was younger. And one day to the other, my legs fell out. So that meant that I was paralyzed from my hips to my toes down. And yeah, all of a sudden I couldn't move anymore, and that obviously also meant that I had to stop my swimming career, and I was in a wheelchair, and yeah, that has been a big yeah, shift in my life, as I always
Hmm.
say. And that meant that all of a sudden, from a vibrantly healthy person, I went to a person in a wheelchair that needed help and was in pain almost every day. After that moment, it took me 7 years to find out what was exactly wrong with my body. And these 7 years, I've had a lot of different diagnoses and a lot of different health treatments, surgeries, and all kinds of things. And luckily, after 7 years, I found out that I'm diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And that's where I am today, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes. So after my diagnosis, I started to realize, okay, the pain is not really going away. There's no medicine yet. There's nothing like a cure or anything for it, sadly. So I kind of like have to learn how to live with it, and actually just start to change a shift in my mindset, basically. And I did that. I went into a lot of coaching sessions and like retreats and all sorts of things, just to make myself trying to accept the circumstances that I was living in from that day on. And that has brought me a lot. That really made me, going from a girl that felt very sorry for herself and sorry that I was in so much pain and couldn't live my life as I used to do, to a girl that actually was accepting becoming a woman and accepting that it was what it is and you have to make the most out of it. It even made me decide to go abroad by myself. So I went to Africa, to Ghana, 2 years ago to do volunteering work. And that really gave me insights on like, yeah, life is just also a matter of being very thankful and grateful for where you are in the world. And that sometimes your circumstances can be very bad, but you can still be very happy in your head. And it's all a matter of being grateful and thankful. And that has really brought me a lot. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no.
a small introduction.
No, well, that's great to hear. Really inspiring, to be honest. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do now?
Yes, of course. I when I came back from volunteering work, I started my job searching for jobs, and
Hmm.
obviously it was a lot harder than I ever expected because of my disability. And I always tried to postpone the moment that I had to go to job interviews because I was quite nervous about it, because I didn't know what were companies going to say about the whole situation with me behind the walker, and if they would still see me for me. And I guess that's also why I decided to do volunteering work, because it's something that you do for free, and therefore it's less scary, I guess, to apply for it. And after I came back, as I said, I decided to do job interviews, and I started working for a big company. And I also decided to join their diversity and inclusion team, which has really been a great yeah, great thing for me, because I feel like there's so much still that can be improved, not only in the company I work for, but in all kinds of companies. And yeah, just to kind of like let my voice be heard. And especially because when I was very sick back in the days, I was not even really able to come out of my bed, and I was really in a bad space mentally and physically. And now that I do have the energy, I find it very important to speak up also for a group that is still not able to speak up for themselves. So I decided to write something on LinkedIn about it, and I did that a few months ago. And that's also how we met. You sent me a
Yeah.
message after that I post, Chloe did, and yeah, the message that I wrote was basically going viral. It was viewed by
Yeah.
1.3 million people, and after that, it kind of like took off. And yeah, I'm really happy to just share my story, and hopefully with that inspire other people, or at least let companies know that there's really a lot of value in hiring people with disabilities. That's the main key.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what kind of improvements do you think that the workplace needs?
I definitely think that there's kind of, at least I'm speaking from my, like, whatever I experience in terms of in Holland. And I think it's also a bit more in Europe. I think what companies now do is that they're very focused on getting a disabled person just for the rates, you know? So they can say, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we have someone in the company. Rather than that they really, really acknowledge like what a person with disability can actually add value to a company. That it's also very good to have different kind of people. And I'm not only talking about disabilities, but like, of course, race, ethnicity, age, gender, LGBTQ society. Like it's really important to have a diverse company as possible, and it's also been like proven that it shows in the numbers that it's really like effective in a positive way as well. So not only therefore, but it's so great to be in a team where everybody's from a different place and comes from a different background and has different stories. Then it's also when you have a problem, you have so many different kind of views to find solutions to these problems. And of course, in working life, in companies, there you deal with problems every day. You know, you have to be creative. You have teams to be creative. And in my perspective, how I see my own working experience is that I've always tend to look at things a bit differently because I had to ever since my legs fell out at age of 14. I had to start thinking differently, and yeah, that can really be beneficial for big companies and small companies as well. So I think that the shift that they need to make is rather than to focus on, okay, let's hire someone because then we look good for the outside world, to do really have a conversation with people in job interviews and to hire them for all the things that they're capable of. And mainly people that have been through a lot, like car accidents, diseases, diagnosis, whatever it may be. They also have such interesting stories most of the
Mm.
times. You know, they have been fighting through something that actually occurs a lot of strength and a lot of like power and determination, which you also need on the workplace. You need people that are determined, have strength, that never give up, that are motivated, basically. And I think it's really interesting because if you look at that group, it has all these aspects already because they have overcome so much already, and it's really beneficial in my perspective and what I believe and I stand for. So yeah.
Mm. Okay. Very interesting. Going back to your story, could we quickly go over what exactly Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is and what exactly it kind of entails and how you've dealt with that?
Yes, of course. Ehlers-Danlos means it's a connective tissue disorder, and it basically means that your collagen, your connective tissue, is a bit weaker than others. And for me specifically, it means that I'm in pain almost every day, the whole day, and that's because my joints are never really in the right place. Um, I'm very flexible. I'm over flexible, hypermobile, as you could say it. And it has many different types, which make it very hard for doctors to diagnose in the early stage. And that also cost me the 7 years, but I know the average length of years that people have to wait in order to get a diagnosis is actually 10 years. So it's really long, 10 to 20 years before people receive this diagnosis. And I think that's basically because the symptoms can be the same. They all have the same symptoms, but next to that, they have patients have other symptoms as well, which makes it, of course, very hard. And for me, it affects me in a way that I sometimes wake up and I can't feel my legs. I lose feeling, and yeah, it's basically when you wake up, you're already like 100 steps behind of my old energetic self. because when I took a shower, brushed my teeth, and put on my clothes, I already feel like kind of like exhausted, and then the day still has to start. And there's also days where I'm like jumping out of bed and it's fine. So it's very in my situation, it's very one day can be completely different than to the other day, and it makes it hard to plan things and makes it hard to um, yeah, kind of like to know what your week is gonna look like, because you don't know. You're very much relying on your body, and it's not very stable. So that's how it affects me personally.
Okay. What advice would you then give to people who have been in similar situations, people with disabilities, looking to go into the workplace? Just advice in general, I guess.
Yes, I would say what really helped me is to kind of like look for someone to talk to, and that could help you. It could be a friend, it could be your parents, it could be a coach or a psychologist, or anyone that can just basically that you can talk to, like about your fears or what you need help with, because it is actually quite scary to go out there and then to say, hey, this is me. I'm gonna do a job interview when you're in an unstable position already physically. It can be very challenging. So I would suggest to ask for help. And if that's something, because it's sometimes very hard for people with disabilities to ask for help, as I know this myself. So if that's something that you're not really into, I think it's very great to just start doing it, to literally just go to job interviews and just see it as an opportunity that you don't only like they don't only have to like you, but you also have to like them, you know. And I
Mm,
think often we go to a job interview being very scared that they don't like us, or that we're not good enough, or these kind of things. But sometimes when you look at it differently, like, hey, what do they have to offer me, it actually gives you a bit more power and a bit more strength, and then you feel a bit more secure. At least that's how I felt during two job interviews, when I just changed my mindset. I was like, hey, actually it's a great position for me as well to be in. And of course it's also difficult if you're really looking for a job, and if you're in an insecure position, it also brings a bit more stress and pressure. I understand that completely. But I would just say, like, just do it as much as you can, and just also actually tell about your struggles, and just to speak about it openly, and also focus on what it brought you, you know, what your disease, how it makes you different in a positive way. I think that's really important to focus on. And yeah, that would be my advice.
okay, it's great. I don't think I have any more questions. Was there anything you'd like to say? Yes.
Yeah, I would like to thank you for your great interview. And yeah, I think it's great what you guys are working on. And I think it's really helpful as well. And yeah, if anything, you can always ask me, or yeah, I'm happy to help out. So thank you so much for your
Well,
interview. Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time to interview. It's really interesting, honestly.